So let's talk about your favorite game, which we've talked about a little bit in the past, as we both love it very much.
Yeah.
And I know you kind of flip-flopped a little bit, or right, from Persona 3 and Persona 4, but
Mhm.
you sit now on Persona 4.
Yeah, after I'd finished, like, I just wanted to bring up 3 because I feel like I can't love Persona 4 in a world where I didn't play Persona 3.
I
Um,
can. So
yeah.
screw your world. I didn't play Persona 3. Persona 4 is just fine by me.
Yeah, it's a real good video game.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, like, I played Persona 3 at a very particular time in my life. Um, and I love Persona 4 as much as I do because like part of that love is like knowing how much of an improvement it is on an already excellent game. So
And is this Persona 4 the PlayStation 2 version or the golden version on Vita?
it's golden. Yeah.
Golden.
I
Okay.
like both.
But did you
Like,
play it? Like, did you play it on PS2
yeah.
first? Okay.
Yeah. I'd gotten to essentially the final boss on PS2. And the thing is, like, the reason I never finished the PS2 version was just because, like, I would hit those roadblocks where I would die and lose hours of progress of grinding, which, like, you don't really have to worry about in the Vita version because you can restart from, like, a floor as opposed to having to reload a save.
Yeah.
So, like, that's secretly the best part about the Vita version. So, yeah, those games are real good. What do you want to know about them, Trevor? You tell me.
Let's talk about what makes them kind of standouts. What makes them your favorites? How did we go from Final Fantasy VII? Alex needs his mom to play it with him or play it for him,
Mm-hmm.
to Persona 4, one of the longer, more in-depth JRPGs of kind of the modern era,
Mm-hmm.
landing on that
It's
pedestal for you.
Yeah, it's weird because like there was definitely a period in my life where I realized, or I should have realized, that like JRPGs were my favorite genre, right? And it's like the modern JRPG, not even like the classic JRPG. I love the Chrono Triggers and the Final Fantasies and all that, but typically it's more modern stuff. But like it was like 2009 to 2010 when I had my GameFly subscription, repping it. You know what I'm saying?
Nope, I never did that because I just bought games.
Yeah, I didn't. I could not afford that.
That's
so,
fine. You be a poor child. That's cool. Whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, I probably missed out on a lot of stuff because I was buying all my stuff and so
yeah.
I wasn't
It
getting.
was a good. It was a good opportunity to get like a one thing and just do that thing.
Yeah.
And then get rid of it when you're done with it. So like Tales of Vesperia, Tales of Symphonia, really pretty much any Tales game that came out in that generation. And like there were some other ones I like Valkyria Chronicles and stuff like that, that I got into in that kind of time period, that I got so into. It was the moment where I realized like I like single player games and I like really really long single player games because like from my perspective, and I know some people hate them, they don't have time. Like when you're 40 hours into a JRPG, like you're so invested. Anything that happens matters so much to you. So like when you finish Tales of Vesperia after 70 hours, like it is like a life altering experience. It is climactic in a way that few things are. So Persona 3, which I put 109 hours into on my first playthrough, like especially like when I was sick with chronic fatigue syndrome, when I played that, I couldn't do anything else. Like, and I was exhausted all the time. And you play like this, this kid in his junior year of high school. I'm like, I'm a kid in my junior year of high school, and stuff like that. Like I connected with it on a lot. And like as soon as I finished Persona 3 and found out Persona 4 existed, I went and bought it off of Amazon, the PS2 copy, and played through that as far as I could before I burnt out. Right, and then a year later, I would try and play through it, and I would get a little bit further again to like just before the final boss, and I'd burn out again, just because I didn't have as much time as like I originally did when I was playing Persona 3.
Mm-hmm.
But like definitely like going from 3 to 4, like all the changes they made were like phenomenal. For example, in Persona 3, you can't control your party members at all. You have the option to. In Persona 4, you don't have to, but you have the option to, whereas you didn't before. In Persona 3, if like you get hit with like their instant kill spells, if you get hit with one of those and you don't have this item that can protect you, you're dead. Whereas like there are ways around that using social links in Persona 4. Like in Persona 4, you can build a social link with your male party members. It's not something you can do in Persona 3, which is super weird, and like clearly they realize that after the fact. So and like in Persona 3, if you have a female social link, you have to romance them. Meaning you can only do one at a time, because also in Persona 3, if you were romancing someone else, then another girl would get jealous, and then you'd have to like make up with her, and you could only really do one at a time. So like they refined all of these systems and made the UI faster and made everything better. So like part of my love for Persona 4 is like this respect for the developer, P Studios, for like how much they clearly care and how much they've grown. Like seeing like Persona 4 to Catherine, and now Catherine to Persona 5. It's like, you know, I know these guys know what they're doing, and it's so obvious how much they care just looking at that 3 to 4 jump. Even just looking at the original Persona 3 to Persona 3 Fez, which is kind of like the complete epilogue included edition, or the golden edition of 4 even. It's like I love those guys. And when I eventually played Persona 4 Golden in January 2013, like I didn't stop till I finished it. And that like they'd refined it enough and gotten rid of like the kind of aged PS2 like dying and having to reload to save stuff enough that like, man, just it was like a drug. I could not stop. I couldn't quit. So I mean, like it's so good. You've played it, you know.
I did, yeah. So I got into it. So in my episode, my little pilot episode, I talked about Final Fantasy VI is my favorite game.
Yeah.
And what I loved about Persona 4 Golden, because Golden was my introduction to it on the Vita. And what I loved about it was I've been very disappointed with the Final Fantasy series since at least 12. 10, I liked more when I was originally playing it at the time, but it has not aged well, and going back to it, there are parts of it I just can't deal with. So the last one I really loved was Final Fantasy 9, because I love the characters in it, and that's what I haven't liked about pretty much all the Final Fantasies since then, is that I can't relate to any of the characters. They just all are so bland or stock characters to me. Whereas this game, going into Persona, I was like immediately latching on to and enjoying all the characters and how they all related to one another. And yeah, it was I often talk about, and why I hold out way more hope for Persona 5 than I do for Final Fantasy 15 is because P Studios is doing what I've wanted Final Fantasy to come back to for years, and they just haven't. So I am basically at a point where I'm putting all of my faith in the Persona series, all that love that I used to have for Final Fantasy into Persona, and that's based off of the one game and then Catherine. But then the reference that I hear in people talking about, like you or Andrew Goldfarb talking about like Persona 3, and so I have that faith that you just spoke of they know what they're doing and they have a clear vision for it, which I just don't think Final Fantasy has had in recent years, at least in there. I haven't played the online versions, the online RPGs, but in the console ones, I've been just very disappointed. So
yeah,
Persona 4 was giving me all of the stuff that I'd been missing for a decade of my JRPG life.
Yeah, and like in a lot of ways, Persona 4, you think back to, is a game that came out in the US in 2008, in Japan in 2007. Like you think, can you?
There we go. Okay,
can you hear me? Okay, good. I just want to make sure it all burns down.
Well, I just lost you for a second. I was like, oh, did I unplug something?
Okay, good. But yeah, you think like Persona 4 is like a game. The original Persona 4 came out in the US in 2008, in Japan in 2007, I believe. Is like you think about like a character like Kanji, right? Who you know, Like I know a lot of people talk in like pretty definitive terms about Kanji and like his sexuality and stuff like that. I think like they left it so like artistically ambiguous in a way that's like, is Kanji gay? I don't know. Maybe Kanji's just Kanji, right? Like maybe he's just who he is, and like we don't necessarily have to label him one way or the other. And I think
Mhm.
that was kind of like the underlying message with that character. And I think that was a lot of like, you don't have to be one thing. You can be yourself,
Yeah,
and that's the only one thing you have to be.
exactly. It's about him coming to terms with who he is, not about us coming to terms with who he is necessarily.
Exactly. And that's how it is with pretty much every character. And like, you still don't see characters as well thought out as Kanji and kind of like his internal struggle that is like maybe the most relatable struggle in that entire game, to like, I mean, Naoto as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, like you don't see that shit in games in 2016. And these Japanese developers, and like Japanese developers tend to be a little bit more old fashioned or closed minded. And like that kind of thing coming out of it shows like these people like are really trying to tap into things that happen to real people,
Mhm.
as opposed to like, sure, it's like, you know, hypersexualized or like super dramatized or dramatized. I don't know words, and over the top, but like the core of each issue of like Kanji coming to terms with being okay with liking the things that he likes, and like Rise coming to terms with like not really knowing who she is, and like the way they make that extravagant and ridiculous and over the top is like amazing and like heartfelt and powerful in a lot of ways. And like you were saying, like it is about those characters and like how they become a family in a lot of ways. It was the Mass Effect 2 before Mass Effect 2 happened.
Yeah.
And it's like the super Japanese Mass Effect 2, which is why I like it even more than Mass Effect 2. But like pretty much any of those situations where you're assembling a team is like, that's my favorite shit. It's like it's essentially a caper movie, and it's about high school kids, and the heist is the TV world, and it's great.
And so the Persona 5 definitely has you hyped for.
Oh, like absolutely.
It's building a heist basically, right?
It's literally stealing people's hearts, and it's like, man, y'all got it figured out. Like they knew. They were like, no, wait, what if we went one step further? And it's just like the thing about Persona 3, I think the overall plot of Persona 3 a little bit more than the overall plot of like catching the murderer in Persona 4. But Persona 3, like you never have that same feeling for your party members like you do in Persona 4. And it's kind of intentional in a lot of ways. Like there's a distance that they have to overcome. And there's like this frustration and this anger in Persona. It's a much darker game. And like seeing that like this completely different tact, completely different approach in Persona 4 is just like, man, they know what they're doing. Those guys have it figured out. And like, yeah, it's, you know, just like the character work is unparalleled, even to some Western games. Like people can talk up Mass Effect and Witcher and stuff like that, but like I've never been as close to a fictional video game character as I have been to Rise or Yosuke or something like that. So
Rise is Bay.
Rise is Bay.
Was she always Bay for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never wavered.
No eyes on anyone else?
No, I mean I like Marie a lot, but especially like seeing the new stuff in Golden, which like a lot of that was new for me. And like all of Rise was re-recorded for Golden as well. So it was like fresher. But yeah, it's, man, so good.
Let's talk about the music of Persona.
Hell yeah.
One of my delightful little and we don't do it all that much anymore, but we had like a little train going every now and then where we would just Snapchat music, like us all
Persona music.
Persona 5 hype, like you, me, and Nabashin and Danny Juarez and Cameron Abbott, like a handful of just people just Snapchatting a whole group just listen to Persona stuff. And
Yeah.
that's definitely, that was one of the things that certainly jumped out at me as when in talking about Final Fantasy VI. One of my, like, I love the music of that series, and so that was another one where, like, the music in the more recent Final Fantasy games has been a little bit forgettable, um, save like one or two themes kind of aside.
Yeah.
But like Persona, I can just I can and do listen to like Persona soundtracks just because it's great music and enjoyable and so much fun and so energized.
Yeah, I mean it's and like that's a staple of the franchise too. Like one of my favorite parts in 4 is when you go to Tatsumi Port Island, which is the location from 3, and they're playing the Persona 3 music in 4, and oh god, it's so clever, and it's like it's I'm sure we'll talk about musical motifs later with some of the other stuff we got lined up, but that shit just plays right to my heartstrings. And like it is like when you hear Nevermore, like from Persona 4, which is the main theme of that game, and like if you read the translated lyrics and from Japanese, like that song is the theme of that game, like to an emotional T, to a sound T, and to like what it's trying to tell you. And like that feeling of like these people that you have will always be with you, and pursuing your true self and being the best you can be. Like the music evokes so many of those feelings that the narrative is trying to capture, and it's also just catchy as hell.
Yeah,
like walking around Iniba, like in Heartbeat is playing, it's just like, yes,
and it's great that it's music that doesn't wear itself out, because
somehow
that can somehow when you are playing it for 100 hours, and you are hearing the same things or just grinding through dungeons. I love that I never got tired of that, like, because there will be plenty of games where I will play and I'm just like, okay, I've heard this song enough, I'm gonna throw a podcast on instead. But I never did that with Golden.
Yeah, it is one of those things like where I realize like I've just been listening to music for 45 minutes and I could be using this time to listen to a podcast to catch up on the infinite podcasts I'm behind on. Yeah. And I like, yeah, it's crazy too, because the music they added in Golden is indistinguishable from the original soundtrack. And pretty much everything they add in Golden is indistinguishable. There's like, going back recently, there's like one glaring like re-recorded thing that sticks out to me so bad. And it's like maybe total 30 seconds. And it's the only thing just because like I know it was added in later. But like Snowflakes, when Snowflakes starts playing in January in Golden, man, like I just want to start crying because it feels like it's like coming to an end, and that's like the lyrics of the song and everything. And the wannabe, the whatever the new combat music is, I don't know the name of it, but Make History, that's what it is. That's also like super great. Yeah, man, it's just it's iconic, it's memorable, and it's catchy, and it's also like thematically appropriate in a lot of weird ways.
Yeah. Did you so have you played, what of the like extended Persona 4 universe games have you played?
I've played all the way through Arena. I've played through the Persona 4 story arc in Arena 2. I've played through Persona Q up until almost the ending. There's a tragic story with that as well. And I've started Persona 4 Dancing All Night, but there's a different Rise in Persona 4 Dancing All Night, and it hurts. Like, she's good, and she does a really great job, and she still feels like Rise in a lot of ways, but it's hard for me.
It's because it's now your third Rise.
Yeah. Well, it's second.
Was it Laura Bailey that did all
in the original Persona 4? Yeah.
Oh, okay. And she just re-recorded stuff.
She just re-recorded, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so in Persona Q, I lost the game card to that 94 hours in or 86 hours in, one of the two, on the last dungeon.
Oof.
And now like I'll never know. I'll just die not knowing how that game ends. It's really great. It's a really great game, and it's heartbroken.
I started Persona Q. I don't think I even got like through the first dungeon or something like that. It was because I'm just not on mobile all that much. Maybe if I end up being in a place where I'm commuting a lot, I'll dive back into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those, like, I would play it on planes, but then I would play it for basically an hour and that was it. And then I was like, well, now I'm just going to mingle with friends the whole time I'm walking around and traveling at shows and stuff.
It's like Persona Q for me is so awesome because like, so kind of spoilers, but for Persona 3, one of the party members in Persona 3 dies. Well, multiple of the party members die. So like in Ultimax and Persona 4 Arena, those people aren't around, right? Mm-hmm. So you get to see kind of like post Persona 4 characters, and then years later Persona 3 characters, which is great for me, especially like it definitely gives a great resolution to the Persona 3 characters, who I love. Especially Ultimax, which has all of them in it, just not just a handful. But Persona Q, it takes place mid Persona 4 story and mid Persona 3 story via some time travel bullshit. So all the characters, all of them are there, plus 2 more, plus Marie. So it's awesome. And there's so many characters, and there are 9 Persona 3 characters total.
And did you? Because that's in Persona Q, you pick 4 or 3, right?
Yeah, you pick which protagonist
you are. Okay.
Yeah, so I was playing through the 3 side, because I was more curious. Yeah, I was curious like what the perspective would be for that, and it is very interesting because they're like jumping forward in time, and then the Persona 4's characters are like staying still in time, and like it's cool. It's it's the chibi art style, and it's very much a side story. It's like very non-essential.
Yeah.
But you get to spend more time with those characters, and like I said, those characters are a lot like family to me. So seeing them interact, kind of like at the peak of their prime, and there are things discussed about some of the characters that aren't around from Persona 3 that make me wonder what they might do with that in the future. There is an epilogue to Persona 3 that kind of explains what happens to some of those characters, and they leave it very much open-ended in a way that like Persona 4 Arena does kind of pick up some of the pieces there and illustrate things are continuing, and that might be resolved someday, and it's very interesting. So
nice. And then Persona Dancing All Night, did you, because it's a different resay, did you just not go through that one, or did you play through that as well?
It's part that, is part like Burnout on Persona stuff. I really want, because apparently there's an epilogue to Persona 4 Dancing All Night. There's very much a nice like closed bow on Persona 4 and those characters that I really want to see. And the story was fun, again, very much non-essential, but it's got Rise in it. I like to know what she's getting up to, what she's doing. She's dancing.
Yeah. That was interesting because I played through Persona 4 Dancing All Night, and I found myself with that one just like not engaged in the story. And so I was spending a lot of that game just skipping through cutscenes as quickly as I could, because I just didn't feel like it didn't have the magic that Golden did for me. So I was just skipping through, and eventually I just was like, okay, well, screw this, I can go play all the songs in free play. And so I hopped out and did that for a while, and then basically played through every song, and then I went back into the story mode to go back through that. But yeah, the story just didn't catch me. I don't know if it was a burnout or what, or I just like, I mean, so much, there's so many new characters thrown into it that like I just didn't feel connected to, and I wanted to spend more time with the Inaba crew.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, like maybe I'll go back to it. I'd like to finish that, see through that epilogue at least before 5, but
there's this thing called YouTube. I'm sure you can find it out there.
It's true. It's hard for me to do that with Persona. But yeah, I'm like it seemed inoffensive at the very least. So
yeah, that's fair. Great. Anything else you want to kind of touch on in Persona Land before we dive into our next topic?
It's really great.
What's that? You've written a lot on it. Where can people go to find your writings on Persona?
It's hard. I mean, like, I've written a lot of stuff that I've not published about it. There is one thing that I really like that is on irrationalpassions.com. I wrote a thing about when I had the original writing crew, we did a week where we all highlighted our favorite video game soundtracks, and I wrote about Persona 4s. And I, linked to some songs in there. I've written about the Persona 3 music on my blog, alexloneal.tumblr.com. That's worth looking at. Again, highlighting some of the music, some of the lyrics and stuff like that. There are some really iconic themes in the Persona 3 soundtrack, especially the ending theme. Oh man, the ending theme. So I don't know, like I genuinely do believe Persona 4 is a good JRPG to start with. Like if you've never really gotten into a long one before, like going with the right expectation. You don't have to play it all at once. The way the game is divided is like meant to be played over the period, like a long period of time.
Yeah.
And it's clever. It's still brilliant. It's still fun. Mechanically, it's one of my favorite JRPGs ever. And it, like, overall, it is my favorite game ever. So like, get a VDTV for $35. Get a copy of Persona 4. It's like typically on sale for like $15 on the PSN or less than that even. And like, give it a try. Like, there's no harm, and it's awesome. It is an awesome video game.
That it is. All right, I'll find those links of your stuff, and I'll throw them in the description below.
I can grab them for you.
All right, excellent. It's like you've done this before, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.